The American dollar has just been broken by China. China and Brazil recently agreed to stop using the US dollar. It should come as no surprise that the US dollar is the first to go as the second largest economy in the world, gradually breaking connections with the United States. Considering that every major economy as we know it is ready to collapse. Billionaire Ray Dalio has previously explained how these cycles frequently occur and how we may best prepare for what lies ahead based on predicted events that occur around once every 100 years. Due to its status as a reserve currency, the US dollar has historically been the most powerful currency in the world. This refers to a currency that is accepted everywhere in the world, and the US dollar has occupied that position since 1945, due to its security, durability, and stability. When it was initially implemented, the system was utilized to maintain stability in the cost of investments, exchange rates, and commodities like gold and oil. Note that the value of any currency you owned had a fixed value against the US dollar. It helps to have a single global currency with a stable value to conduct the transactions when you have dozens of nations trading products and services with one another. Otherwise, you face the danger of receiving payment in a currency that might be difficult to convert or whose value might have dropped by the time you are able to exchange it to your home currency. Consider this to be a safe, universal transfer of wealth through the US dollar. It goes without saying that the US gains from this as well because more countries use and hold on to the US dollar, providing us more purchasing power, but the US dollar appears to be in danger of losing its position as the reserve currency. To properly understand, consider Ray Dalio's evolving world order. He asserts that the world order between the dominant economy and the emerging economy has changed over time and, eventually, one will fail to give way for something new. Before 1945, the reserve currency, for instance, belonged to the British pound, which survived for 105 years after the French Revolution, which was then replaced by the Netherlands, followed by Spain, Portugal, Venetian gold, and so on, with the understanding that reserve currencies never last indefinitely and alternate between a 10 to 20-year transition every 100 years. So what causes this? Ray Dalio notes that this can be categorized into three parts: the rise, the top, and the decline. Every time a new reserve currency is introduced, during the rise, a period of calm and prosperity follows, with people betting and borrowing money to keep the system running. This is typically characterized by a strong educational foundation, critical thinking, character development, and work ethic. These traits enable access to resources such as new technologies and other tools that enable productivity to continuously increase. Nevertheless, there needs to be a system in place for borrowing, allowing individuals from all over the world to convert their money into investments in order to finance that continuous gain in productivity. In fact, Ray Dalio notes that every successful reserve currency took the exact same route that led to the top. During its height of the economic boom, it was generally believed that as people made more money, their time became more precious in comparison to other nations who were prepared to labor for less money. Also, other nations have the capacity to imitate the latest innovations at a fraction of the cost, lowering the competitiveness of the leading power. The turning point, however, occurs when individuals begin to doubt the reserve currency. They refuse to purchase it and would prefer to sell than reinvest the gains, which naturally causes the downturn. According to Ray Dalio, in an economic slump, a country must decide between defaulting and printing additional money if it cannot pay its debts. And they will always choose to create more money, which devalues the currency and increases inflation. Since the 1990s, the central bank has already intervened 3 times to finance, and the sector failed, during the dot-com boom, once during the mortgage crisis, and again during the COVID shutdown. The rich allegedly relocate their assets to investments and currencies they feel most secure in when a government struggles to finance itself during difficult economic times or rising inflation, allowing other countries to eventually replace that country as the reserve currency. Surprisingly, he reveals that these incidents have been recurring since the Roman Empire. Despite the fact that no two alterations have ever been exactly the same, there is a pattern that may be used today to predict what might occur in the future. In this instance, the US dollar's worth is indeed declining. Though, in theory, a dollar is always valued at $1, this is not always the case. In reality, it is monitored against 3 separate measures. The first is the exchange rate to other currencies, followed by the demand for 10-year Treasury notes, and the third factor is what is referred to as foreign currency reserves, which is basically another way of saying how many US dollars other nations hold. It is true that since 2020, the value of the US dollar has been steadily declining when compared to the exchange rate of foreign currencies. Despite the recent decline, the US dollar is currently stronger than it has been during the past 20 years. Second, in terms of the demand for 10-year Treasury notes, it can be said that this is effectively just a 10-year loan to the government and for investors seeking a secure location to keep their money. In essence, they'll buy these and receive a capital return that is guaranteed. Nonetheless, the US dollar's worth has increased along with interest rates, meaning that when interest rates rise, more people would want to buy bonds with higher yields, which is positive for the US dollar. Thirdly, things become slightly less attractive when it comes to foreign exchange reserves, since, as you can see, the US dollar has been progressively losing value as other currencies start to replace it. According to CNBC, we are currently at the lowest level in 25 years. This naturally brings us to the current situation. On March 29, it was revealed that China and Brazil had agreed to trade exclusively in their respective currencies, foregoing the US dollar as an intermediary. Essentially, this would allow them to do direct trade with one another without first needing to buy US dollars. They currently do transactions worth $150 billion annually, that no longer pass through the United States. To be clear, this isn't the first time something similar has occurred. China has already been moving away from the US dollar since 2010. In addition to Saudi Arabia, who recently declared that it was open to the possibility of dealing in Chinese yuan, while Russia and India both abandoned the US currency a year ago. This isn't exactly a surprise that appeared out of nowhere, but it might have a big influence. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, known to as BRICS, have already teamed up to interact and establish their own reserve currency that is distinct from the US dollar. As Great Capital notes on Twitter, China's trading volume surged following the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and sanctions helped them to establish even more of a foothold in global trade. However, is this a cause for concern? And could the United States soon lose its status as the world's reserve currency? The US dollar's future appears dubious, but as of right now, nothing comes close to being able to replace it. Even though predictions that China's economy will surpass that of the US by 2030, or that some of the BRICS economies are among the fastest growing in the world, are undoubtedly not the most encouraging, but the US dollar continues to dominate international trade and this trend is not expected to change anytime soon. Since there would be a lot that would need to happen if there were a new reserve currency, even if a major black swan event undermined the position of the United States in global commerce, it might not occur or it might not be able to occur in a way that we could reliably predict. Naturally, this doesn't imply that there aren't any concerns at all, as even Elon Musk tweeted that this is a major issue. Due to excessive government spending and US policies that makes other nations want to abandon the dollar, they are being forced to absorb a sizable portion of the US dollar inflation. With that in mind, it makes sense that barons recently claimed that the US stimulus program following the financial crisis began a currency war by devaluing the dollar in an effort to strengthen America's economy, since there is a very real risk that other nations will want to compete. Even Saudi Arabia entered a new trade agreement, which will ultimately put a lot more pressure on the US, but in reality, the US currency is traded less and there is more rivalry among nations now than ever before. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave a comment down below and let us know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative videos.